welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm coming at you with an interesting video for you today. The video that I want to talk about today is how to produce beef tallow. Now, some of you might not quite understand what tallow is. Now, let me explain briefly. Okay, tallow is taking animal fat and rendering it down into a form where you're removing all the impurities, and it's a very good product to have. Some of the benefits of tallow are you can use it for putting on leather to help keep the leather pliable, so you could put tallow on your saddle. You could use it on your boots to waterproof your boots. If you have wooden implements, like say for example an axe handle or a hammer handle that's wood, you could put tallow on that, and what it'll do is it'll soak into the wood, and it'll keep that wood pliable and keep it where it lasts longer. You can use tallow for cooking. You can use it for like say in the cooking, let's say for example deep frying things. Maybe you're making tacos and you want to cook your corn tortillas or something like that. You can use tallow for that. You can also use it for lubrication, and what I mean by that is, let's say you're out and you're trying to make a primitive fire, and you're let's say you're using a bow and drill, and you've got your bearing up here and you're bowing away. You could put a little bit of tallow on your bearing, and that'll help lubricate that process. There's just a lot of good uses for tallow. You can use it to put on steel implements like the blade of your knife. If you have a knife that's carbon steel, that's not stainless, and you want to keep it from rusting, you can just run a little tallow on that. It'll keep the rust off the blade. But there's many reasons why tallow is such a good thing to have around. Now, tallow, again, you know, it comes from animal fat. It comes from the hard white animal fat of the animal. And what I say by rendering is, I'm meaning that we're extracting the impurities from that fat, and the process that's left behind is known as tallow. Now, tallow comes from beef fat or hard animal fat. Okay, now let me explain a little further. Tallow can be found in animals such as cows. It could be from deer meat. It could be from elk, caribou, buffalo, moose. A lot of these large game animals have fat, and that fat will produce tallow. Now, don't get that confused with lard. Okay, lard is a similar process to render down fat, but that fat that produces lard comes from pigs or javelina and things like that. So to get the true tallow, that comes from beef and things of that nature. Now, you're probably wondering, what's the difference between lard and tallow? In a nutshell, okay, to make it as simple as possible, at room temperature, tallow remains a little bit harder than lard does. Lard tends to be a little looser or softer at room temperature. So I'm going to take you through the process, and I'm going to show you another technique that I like to use to make tallow. One more thing that I forgot to mention, what you could use tallow for: you can use it to make candles. So stay with me. I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, right now, in no particular order, I'm going to show you some of the things that I need to make tallow. Now, first and foremost, we need some sort of deep pan. We're going to put the rendered fat down in there. Well, we're going to put the fat down in there, and we're going to render it. Obviously, we need some beef fat. Now, I go to my local butcher shop and I ask them to get me beef fat. They charge me like 95 cents, less than $1, and this is almost 2 pounds. This is an old-fashioned meat grinder that you can use to make hamburger meat and things like that. Although we're not making hamburger meat today, we're just going to render this this tallow down into a hamburger type. So it's not chunks, it's going to be down into a hamburger type state, and that will be able to extract the oils and things out of this much more easily in this cooking process. Over here I have a towel, and this is good cotton fiber. It's a little bit off colored because I filter tea with this a lot, but this is clean, okay? It's not dirty, and what that's going to do is we're going to pour it through this sieve, which the towel is going to be sitting in the sieve, and then it's going to end up in here. the wooden spoon, obviously, to go into the pot to mix the stuff together. This is a ice cream bucket. Okay, once the tallow's rendered and I got it all complete, this is gonna be my storage container that I'm gonna keep the tallow in the refrigerator. And last but not least, I have a small plate, and the plate is basically for the grinder to catch the ground fat. So next step that you'll see, I'll be rendering this down into ground up fat. You might be wondering why I grind this down, and that's simply, you know, some people would cut it into strips with a knife, and I've showed that before in some of my previous videos. But if you can grind it down, it would produce much smaller pieces, and therefore you can render more, you can get more bang for the buck out of this fat than you would if you just cut it into slices. Okay, right now I've got my meat grinder set up, and I'm going to go ahead and break open this tallow. This, well, it's not tallow yet, it's just pure fat right now, but my process right now is going to be to cut this down into a hamburger type state. So I'm just going to set this stuff down into my grinder. It's fresh out of the freezer, so some of it might be a little difficult to get going, but I'm just going to render it down through this grinder. And the product that comes out of the end over here is going to be what's going to go into the pot. This is just a very temporary process. It's not no permanent tray or nothing like that. It's just a very easy process here. So I'm just going to render this down. I'm just going to cut this down. Okay, I'm in the middle of the process of converting these strips of fat into basically ground up fat. I just have my meat grinder here, and I'm just putting it through nice and slow. It's pulling it in. This stuff is not at room temperature right now. I brought it out of the freezer, gosh, maybe a half an hour ago, and I let it sit at room temperature. So I'm not really in a big hurry. I'm just taking my time rendering it down. Don't worry if you see discoloration in the fat. This will all be boiled out when we remove the impurity from it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting this down into ground beef, if you will, ground fat, and I'll be back when I have this process done. Okay, now I have this pot. It's about halfway full of water. I'm going to go ahead and put that on. I'm going to put it on high heat. And here is all my ground fat. I'm going to drop this in to the water. Again, the reason I break it down into a hamburger format is because it renders the fat. It extracts the fat from the material much more efficiently, as if I would have had larger chunks. It wouldn't have extracted as much fat. And since I'm making tallow and I want to produce the max amount possible, that's why I render this down real small, real fine. So that's going to be on high heat. Let's take a look. So this is basically what I have going on right now. I'm going to sit there and let that boil. It's going to come to a boil, and I'm just going to let it boil for quite some time. I'll see you in a few. Here's a quick look at what it looks like now. It's been boiling, oh gosh, 15-20 minutes. You can see that the big amount of ground fat that there was to begin has broken down to quite a bit of smaller pieces, and this is exactly what we want. We want to keep it boiling, and that will, again, it'll render the oils or the fats from the meat. It'll separate the meat from the fat, and this process will go on for quite some time. Okay, this has had a little bit of time to boil. I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat off. And now, what I'd like to do is bring this bowl forward. I'm going to take this rag, if you will. I'm going to lay it right over the top, and my plan is to pour all of this material through. I'm going to back this rag off just a little bit so you can see a little bit more over here what's going on. Just pouring all this material through this filter. And I have this filter layered into 4 layers basically. Might take a little bit of time, but be patient, because again, like I said, we're going through 4 layers. But the reason I do that is because I want really solid filtration of this product. Once you get to about here, you can take a look and see how high your level is. Now you can see that we're pretty high on our level. So at this point, you want to basically dump the meat that's left here in this pan. You want to dump this meat into this sieve here, and I'll explain why here in a second. So I'm just kind of rolling this fat out of the pan into here. This all makes sense here in a second. So I have the majority of the leftover fat in here. Now I'm going to take the 4 corners of this sieve, after I lift it out of the water, of course. Let this stuff strain out. What I want to do is I want to kind of take these corners and bring them together, and eventually my plan is to kind of squeeze this like a package and just kind of squeeze the rest of the fat through. See that? You can see the remainder of that fat pushing through. That's exactly what we want. We're just pushing, kind of squeezing, and just rendering out what's inside of that fat right through the sieve. Just pushing with my fingers, almost like you would a sponge. Just trying to squeeze out this content. Another process that you can do, I'm trying to figure out the easiest way to do it here on camera. Well, I don't think there is an easy way. What I was hoping to do, let me back this off here, is is I was hoping, put that aside for a minute, I was hoping to get all of the material inside of here and squeeze. And for the most part I got the majority of it out. Now I'm going to use this kind of like an old dish towel. I'm going to squeeze what was left oil wise in here. Just going to kind of squeeze it out. See that? All that tallow comes out. At this point I'm going to let that stuff sit, and what will happen over a little bit of time is the temperature of the room will chill this material, and you can see the layer here. This top layer is going to be the tallow that we've made, and this bottom layer is all just water. Some people, you know, if it's cold outside, that'd be a good time to take this and set it outside, because again, this stuff on the top will turn into a solid, and this will all stay liquid down below. So this will solidify, and that's what we're waiting for at this point. We'll be back and I'll show you what to do after that. Okay, just one more thing real quick while I'm waiting. I'm going to go ahead and try to show you what I was trying to show a second ago. I'm going to lay this towel in half, just like this. From here, I'm going to take all of this fatty stuff that was in this pot, I'm going to pour it right in the middle. This is actually what I was trying to show a second ago, and I couldn't think of a good way to do it. Take all the fat, because there might be still some tallow left inside of this fat, so I want to try to render out as much as I can. I want to get every bit out of this fat that I can. So this process, I have all my fat in the middle of this rag. I'm going to take the four corners, bring them together, holding it over my container. I'm just going to kind of squeeze it in hopes that I can squeeze out some fat out of here. It's like a big sponge, and I'm hoping to squeeze fat out. It'll probably produce a little bit of water, and it'll produce a little bit of tallow, but you can see that just by squeezing this, I got a little bit more stuff out of this fat. Now the rest of this stuff, this is dog food at this point, or trash. I'm going to throw it away, throw it in the dog bowl, whatever. It's not really dangerous for the dog because I've extracted all the fat out. Dogs love it. Just put it in their dog food, they'll love it. So again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to let this thing cool, and I'll see you in a few. Let's take a closer look. This is what it looks like. This is just some tallow here. You might see the bubbles and the discoloration and stuff. We're not quite done yet. Stay with me. Okay, right now I have this in the sink, and I'm just adding some cold water. This will hopefully speed up the process. Okay everybody, I'm back. This tallow has had plenty of time to chill, and it has solidified this layer, and underneath here again is water. So I'm going to take this knife, I'm just very carefully going to go around the outer edge of the tallow. And I'm going to cut it, well, maybe not, but I want to extract this tallow out of this and put it into this pan. Anything that is solid pieces I want to put in this pan. Okay, so I'm looking, again, I'm looking at my stuff that's in my bowl here, and any of these big floaties I'm going to use in this pan. So I'm going to use my sieve here just to kind of filter some of this stuff out. See that? That's the stuff that goes in the pan. Obviously I've cleaned the pan, and from this point I'm going to heat this tallow up again. It's not going to be like a super high temperature, but it's going to heat up. I don't need this container with this water anymore, because really the purpose of this was to separate the tallow from the water and to separate the fat. So now I'm going to heat this up. Once it gets good and hot, I'm going to filter it one more last time, and after that I'm going to pour it into this container. So I'll see you in a few after this has a moment to heat up. So again, I'm just kind of mixing it in there, just kind of melting this stuff down. One last good filter of it and it'll be finished. And here it's pretty close to being all liquid. Once it turns all liquid, then I'll filter it. Okay, just like we did before, I'm going to take my little sieve here and I'm going to take this cloth one more time. This time I'm only going to fold it in half. I want it to filter just a slight bit quicker. I'm just going to pour it right in here. It's going to pour through this material and into our holding container. This time we're not going through 4 layers, we're only going through 2. The reason I'm only going through 2 layers instead of 4 is because I did most of the filtration the first time, and there's not really a need to do it that much again. So I'm just kind of looking at this stuff, just going to pull these things together, and as soon as it starts to filter, again, I'm going to try to twist and push with the spoon a little bit and try to get anything that's left in this cloth out. Okay, so again, you know, we can twist it. It is hot to the touch right now, so be careful with it. We're just trying to extract this tallow out of here. So there we have it. I'm going to let this cool. I'll see you in a few. Give you a quick glimpse real quick though. So this is what we're looking like. This is 100% filtered tallow. I'll see you here in a minute after this has had time to cool. Okay everybody, welcome back. I have my tallow in this container. It's had plenty of time to chill. You can see what the finished product looks like. It's nice and solid, it's nice and hard. Well everybody, I want to say thanks for watching my tallow video today. I hope you found the video useful. I hope you got some good information out of it. I want to say please feel free to comment, like the video, share it, thumbs up, and as always subscribe. And one more thing, have a beautiful day everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye. Go make some tallow. Later.